Hello and welcome to this live webinar with Professor Ola Kristensson, one of our course leads for the online Generative AI in Business course. Let's start with a quick stat. So according to McKinsey's 2025 global survey, over 78% of companies now report using AI in at least one business function, and more than 70% are already using generative AI specifically. Today, we are going to explore what it looks like when an organization uses generative AI effectively across teams, functions, and leadership levels. We'll also talk about common risks and how to determine acceptable risk versus reward. Before we start, I'd like to go over a few things so you know how to participate in today's event. This webinar is being recorded and you will receive a link to the recording in a follow-up email. You have all joined in listen-only mode. However, you do have the opportunity to submit questions by typing into the Q&A pane on the control panel at any time, and we will answer these for you at the end of today's presentation. Without further ado, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about our course lead, Professor Ola Kristensson. A little bit of an introduction here on the screen. So Ola is a leader of the Intelligent Interactive Systems Group at the Cambridge Engineering Design Centre, co-founder and co-director of the Centre for Human-Inspired Artificial Intelligence at the University of Cambridge, the co-founder and co-director of the Centre for Human-Inspired Artificial Intelligence at the University of Cambridge as well. He is also an innovator under 35 by MIT Technology Review, and also a member of the Royal Society of Edinburgh Youth Academy for Scotland. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce and hand over to Professor Ola to get the webinar started today. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. So let's imagine a typical business, not a tech giant and not a startup, but a mid-sized typical company with solid ambitions. Maybe it's in a professional services, logistics, healthcare sector, or many other areas. And like so many businesses today, they have been facing growing challenges. Teams are overloaded with admin work and repetitive tasks. Growth is stalling because the internal processes can't keep up. Customers expect more personalized service, but teams are stretched too thin to deliver. And the leadership knows this. They know they need to modernize, but that also feels very risky and complex. Sounds familiar? And these are common problems we see across many different industries. Now, let's imagine this business a year later. They have embraced generative AI in a deliberate and responsible way. It hasn't replaced people, it has elevated them, removed friction, and freed up time for higher value work. So how do they get there? First, they take a step back and then they ask some very simple questions. First, how does our business really work? And by that I mean, what are the systems and the subsystems and processes that exist in this business? How do these systems and subsystems work and interact? And how do they depend on each other? Knowing this, where can we intelligently automate, taking into account risk, which is unavoidable when you do anything in life? By understanding such processes and systems, these businesses find ways to be more agile, more efficient, and more innovative. They found ways to automate the repetitive burdens that slow people down. They allow employees to focus on what really drives the business forward, and they shift the mindset. It opens the door to real transformation. So let's be a little bit more concrete and let's see how this plays out across different roles. So Hannah oversees marketing strategy, making key decisions on product positioning, campaign priorities, and how to best connect with target audiences. Like many marketing managers, she was stretched between strategic planning and operational demands, spending too much time reviewing drafts, formatting reports, and sifting through large volumes of performance data. This is low productive work. Her biggest challenge wasn't creativity. It was having the time and headspace to focus on what truly delivers results. Now with GenAI, her team can accelerate early research, quickly summarize market trends, generate draft messaging for refinement, and even automate routine reporting. This frees up Hannah's time to spend much more time on higher value work. For instance, refining strategy, testing new ideas to stay competitive in the market, and making quicker data-informed decisions. And very importantly, her team stays firmly in control. GenAI enhances their capacity, but critical thinking and final judgment remains human-led. The new workflow has thus been carefully designed to balance efficiency and risk. Her team still reviews everything. GenAI supports them and does not replace them. Accuracy and tone remains human-led. Karim is responsible for making sure the businesses run efficiently, keeping teams aligned, processes flowing, and day-to-day performance on track. Like many operational leaders, what is the biggest frustration? Too much time spent maintaining the status quo, the current system, and not enough time focusing on improving it. In other words, being reactive rather than proactive. Now Karim uses GenAI to streamline routine tasks, summarizing reports, handling internal updates, and automating common queries. This shift has freed him up to focus on where it really counts, driving efficiencies, solving bigger problems, and importantly, unlocking operational improvements that impact the bottom line eventually. Of course, operational oversight remains crucial. Karim's team still monitors key workflows to ensure outputs are accurate, relevant, and aligned with business priorities, using GenAI again to enhance operations, not to lose control over them. Karim's role has shifted from firefighting to forward thinking, giving his organization a sharper edge in how it operates day to day. Jade designs and improves the services the organization delivers to customers. She works across teams and systems to create seamless, efficient experiences that meet customer needs. Her challenge is managing complex processes, multiple stakeholders, and legacy systems, all while trying to drive innovation and, importantly, quality. With GenAI, Jade can quickly analyze data, identify pain points, and generate ideas for improvement. AI also helps her visualize and prototype designs faster. This allows Jade to focus on strategic decisions and creativity, while AI handles time-consuming tasks, helping her deliver better, more agile services that support business growth. And there's a lot of examples here, commercial examples. You may have heard of, for instance, about Lovable, which is a pretty hyped up Swedish startup company that creates websites, interactive websites, and other simple interactive systems purely based on end users prompting the system and instructing it what to do. And these kind of services we're seeing an explosion of these sort of services all around us, and people are quickly figuring out how to basically allow people to be productive and actually create tangible outcomes without actually having the necessary programming skill, which allows people to do some early exploration without having, again, deep technical expertise. Now, Aisha leads the finance team and manages complex financial data from multiple sources. Before adopting GenAI, her team spent considerable time manually reconciling spreadsheets and preparing reports, which obviously slows down decision making. Now, AI-powered dashboards provide real-time insights, highlight anomalies, and forecast cash flow risks, enable her to access accurate information quickly. This allows her team to deliver faster, more reliable financial reports and to focus on strategic planning and investment decisions. So, while AI handles routine tasks, her team can ensure that we have strong controls and oversight to manage risks such as data accuracy and compliance, maintaining full accountability. Let's move over to HR. Maria manages hiring and training in a fast-moving environment, often overwhelmed by high volumes of CVs and limited by standardized training programs that don't address specific team or individual needs. With GenAI, she can efficiently match candidates to roles based on detailed skill profiles and create personalized onboarding and upskilling plans by combining internal knowledge with external AI insights. This can improve employee retention and accelerate time to performance. Maria regularly reviews the AI suggestions, uses a wide range of data sources, and works with her team to make sure the AI supports fair and transparent decisions that are accountable. So what about the executive leadership? At the top of the organization, the board and C-suite now receives AI-generated briefings summarizing performance trends, competitor insights, and predictive scenarios. Decision-making is faster, it's better informed, backed by real-time data, and not last month's PowerPoint. So, 1 year later, where could this company be? Marketing wins more business with sharper insights and more personalized campaigns. The company offers tailored services to customers. Operations deliver faster and more efficiently. Finance allocates resources in a more intelligent way and with greater accuracy. Human resources retains better talent and accelerates employee development. And leadership drives it all. Importantly, when you have GenAI and you want to have GenAI in your business, it has to come from the top because the organization has learned to use GenAI strategically, ethically, and intelligently. And importantly, again, it's supported from the top down. As with any innovation, of course, GenAI carries risks. These include concerns about data privacy, accuracy, and ethical use in areas such as hiring and creative work and many, many other aspects. Here are some very common automation risks to keep in mind. The first risk is situational awareness. This means that this can be an issue when users don't fully understand the data the AI-driven decisions are based on. So it's very important that people understand the data that is driving the AI support. Mental workload may increase if people spend too much time working with the AI, working with automation, rather than solving problems, thereby reducing the overall benefit. Complacency happens when people have too much trust in an AI output, and this can lead to mistakes and errors. Skill degradation can occur if users lose the ability to perform tasks themselves because they rely too heavily on automation. And this can become a problem when a system fails, it doesn't work as expected, or maybe there's a new novel problem that an AI system is incapable of doing at the time. Automation reliability is also a concern because AI results are not always certain, and users can be overconfident if we don't verify the outputs. Hallucinations, sometimes known as confabulation, are inevitable risk with generative AI models as of today. This basically means that a generative AI model generates incorrect or fabricated information, and this is just an inherent outcome based on the way these systems are designed and function. Bias can arise when the AI reflects statistical weights from its training data in an undue way, leading to unfairness, discrimination, or simply incorrect suggestions or decisions. So it's very important finally to balance the benefits and cost of automation. There's no point in taking on high risk for low value tasks. For instance, automating simple email writing to clients can end up costing much more than it actually saves. And a good product manager is also a good risk manager. So there's always risk, but a good product manager is able to anticipate these risks and put mitigation strategies in place. So fortunately, there are established systematic techniques that allow people to develop a GenAI strategy that manages these risks to an acceptable level. And remember, a risk-free system is incapable of doing any work. If you want a system to do anything, you have to take on risk. So you either stay static and avoid all interaction, or you take on some risks and you get work done. So the goal is never to eliminate risk entirely, but to go in eyes open and to keep the risks at an acceptable level, monitor these risks closely, and stay ahead of emerging issues.
Fantastic. Yeah, a big thank you, Per-Ola. So that was just a taster of some of the content that you could expect to be covered in the course Per-Ola leads for the University of Cambridge Online, Generative AI in Business. A really good overview of the various different opportunities and risks associated with potentially implementing generative AI. A quick reminder, please do feel free to add any questions you have about the content of the presentation today or about the course itself in the Q&A box, and we'll get around to answering those questions before the end of the webinar. I'm now going to speak just a little bit more about what's covered in the course. So the Generative AI in Business course from Cambridge Advance Online is a 6-week tutor-guided online course designed to help professionals harness the power of generative AI to drive innovation and efficiency within their organizations. Through real-world case studies and expert instruction from University of Cambridge faculty, learners explore the fundamentals of generative AI, large language models and related technologies, strategic applications of AI in business contexts, risk management, ethical considerations and legal implications, and finally, how to evaluate, implement and scale AI solutions tailored to your organizational needs. Participants complete a final project, applying their learning to a real-world scenario, making the course ideal for professionals in leadership, strategy, marketing, technology, and client-facing roles who want to lead or support AI adoption in their organizations. The University of Cambridge Online, so what makes us different? Well, we stand out by offering courses developed and led by Cambridge academics, quality assured by senior professors. Learners benefit from weekly live interactive webinars, personalized tutor support with low student-to-tutor ratios, and a world-class learning platform. Upon successful completion, participants will receive a University of Cambridge online certificate. And with a global learner base from over 60 countries and a 97% satisfaction rate, the program delivers a highly engaging and prestigious online learning experience. And just to touch on some of that experience and some of the feedback that we've received, we're just going to have a look at some of those comments from some past participants. So the first person here, I particularly enjoyed reading the posts and comments from fellow cohorts as they enriched my understanding of how AI is being applied across different sectors. This course provided a very robust framework to implement and map the steps for integrating a generative AI solution into my business. And I now have a better understanding of the options and risks associated with generative AI. In a product management context, I am better placed to consider the potential and risks of generative AI. Some really good points touched on there, and certainly from the course, the big benefits of being able to touch on everybody else's experience from various different broad industries and roles is a really added value to the course itself. So now that you have all of this information, what are the next steps? Well, I'd love to connect with anybody who does have any further questions or wants to dive deeper into the contents of the Generative AI in Business course. Please feel free to visit our website where you can find more information about the course on the course page, download the course brochure, or arrange a call with myself. This link will be shared in a follow-up email after the webinar, but if you do want to take it down now, please do so. It only takes a few moments to schedule, and calls are usually under 15 minutes to cover everything that we need to. You can also contact us via email. My email address is on the screen there, or please do visit the website where you'll find a contact form, which will lead through to the right team to ask any of your queries. Course enrollment can also be done right online, where you can pay by card or request a quotation. Our next course is set to start on the 13th of October, with a hope of continuing to repeat the course quarterly into 2026 as well. So now, if you haven't already, please do use the Q&A section to send in your questions about this course, and we're going to answer them live. I can see we already have a few courses to get through, so let's see how we're doing. Let's start at the top. What better place to start? So a quick question here is, I'd be interested in your own experiences of where you are using AI today. Per-Ola, perhaps you could start with that one.
Yeah, great question. I've been using AI since I actually started graduating university, my undergrad degree. My final year project was about gesture typing, you know, this typing system on mobile phones where you slide your finger across the touchscreen keyboard to write words, which is a fundamental AI application. That's one of my claim to fames. So I started a company, actually a startup. We did most of it at IBM in California. It was only IBM spin-out I know of, and sold it to Nuance, and this is pre-installed on all mobile devices. And so since pretty much 25 years ago, I've been working in human interaction. I've done work on, for instance, working with people with disabilities, allowing people at late stage ALS to type with their eyes efficiently using eye tracking interfaces. And because the communication rate is so slow, you need to have very, very intelligent word prediction and sentence prediction and inference that actually works for these people to allow them to communicate. I've also very recently worked with Meta for about 5 years. So Meta in Seattle on their optical see-through glasses and their VR glasses. And if you buy a Quest Pro, you might notice you can type in thin air on a virtual keyboard. So I helped them design that. More recently, I'm quite interested in agriculture, actually. So I work with the biggest charity for sustainable and regenerative farming in the world, LEAF, which is headquartered in London, on basically designing bespoke advice for farmers across the world, making sense of the information they have and providing intelligent AI advice. So these are just some examples of what I'm doing. But there's more than me in the course. So there's another professor called Professor John Cullen, who's a colleague of mine, and he's an expert in using AI for sustainability, so circular economy, managing supply chains with rare earth minerals. And he's using AI, for instance, agentic AI and reinforcement learning to understand the supply chain risks, for instance, when it comes to rare earth minerals. Should you open a mine somewhere just to mitigate the supplier risk? These sort of questions. And Henry Eider, who's another person at the course, He's a professional, and he's an expert on deep fakes and other sorts of aspects of the media and AI. And he will talk about risks, for instance, on this course. So everybody on the course is has a deep experience and recurrent experience and current experience of using AI in a wide range of settings. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Pearl. I think that's a pretty good answer and lots of interesting things to explore there. Certainly within the course, I think I would mention as well, it really encourages you to consider how generative AI is already being used within your organization, depending on how large that is. I recently completed the course, and it certainly helped me to explore the various different areas of Cambridge University Press and Assessment, where our department sits, in terms of how that's being used, and an incredible amount of different opportunities, whether it's simple internal efficiencies around summarizing meeting notes, or translation services, and looking at how that's going to be effective in our publishing and academic research and everything else, the challenges that are around that. So fantastic, good start to the questions. The next one here, and a really good one that relevant to the course as well. You talk about risk being needed to do anything. How do you manage the framework in an AI world and by department?
Yeah, it's a great question. So module 3 is specifically focusing on risk. The good news with risk is it's actually possible to systematically manage risk. The bad news is that it's easy to forget about things. Checklists and very silly things like that actually add value. So systematic approaches to risk management are absolutely key. And it is really is an important point that you can't do anything if you want to minimize the risk, right? There's a risk in everything you do, even picking, grabbing a cup of coffee induces a risk, right? It's all about understanding what is the acceptable level of risk. So how much risk am I willing to take, basically, to get my work done? And to understand that, that's a trade-off decision. So then you have to understand the value you have, right? So again, we have to use systematic methods to understand the functions, what you want to create, which is what Jonathan talks about in module 2. And then in module 3, we talk about risk, so you can make an informed decision. So some things people do is they delineate what's called a system boundary. So they define what is precisely within the system I'm going to risk assess. And anything outside of that system boundary, we do not care about. And this ensures that risk assessment is tractable. And then once you have that system boundary, now you can apply a whole range of methods to understand risk. And this is very important with AI, because working with AI is a bit like working with people. Anything can happen, right? So actually, very fortunately, we know a lot about how to manage risk with people, right? Particularly from air traffic control, for instance, critical systems like nuclear reactors and so on. There's a lot of very famous human factors engineering research in this area. And a lot of this is also applicable for AI systems. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is about the principles of human AI systems, like, for instance, fairness and so on. So not necessarily risk in the terms of in terms of an unintended system response, but more in terms of I don't want to have biased decisions or unfair decisions recommended to me, because it's going to cost my business one way or another, right? And these are very unique AI challenges that also have to be taken into account.
Yeah, fantastic. A really good answer there, I think, to that. And this leads really nicely on to the second question here as well, which again, really lovely to see how relevant it is to the course. I've been working with companies for the last 2 years to introduce AI and get teams to adopt AI. What do you recommend is the best strategy for this?
Yeah, this is the silver bullet question, isn't it? Right. And it's actually something I talk about quite a lot in module 6, because there is a phenomenon known as appropriation. So consumer companies know this because they can see their sales, right? If people don't like your electric toothbrush, they won't buy it, and they see it instantly, and they have to make a course correction. When you induce AI into an organization, it's very difficult to know this, right? So what usually happens is that people appropriate technologies. And what I mean by that is that if I work in, let's say, a big accounting firm, I need to get my work done, right? So I need to get my work done and stay employed, right? And meet my targets. So I'm going to do whatever I can to get my work done, to achieve my goals. If you then provide me with a tool, I might appropriate it. I might start using it, but only if that tool is going to make my life easier in some way, right? It's going to give a benefit to me. And even if it does give me a benefit, how do I know I actually will see that benefit? Because in the beginning, I have to invest time in learning this tool, using this tool. I have to take on risk, right? So there has to be a give and take here. So this is known as appropriation. And it's a very, very important part of AI system design, to design for appropriation. So this is something we talk about in module 6. And it's necessary to design for appropriation because as a designer, we can never fully predict what people are going to want to do in the future because it's impossible to accurately foresee the future. So we need to have enough flexibility in the system to allow people to appropriate the system. This may mean appointing champions, supporting training, leadership from the top, not just telling people use AI or else, like bottom up, that doesn't quite work. But also things like explaining the functionality. Why is the functionality there? There's usually a reason for it. It's very difficult for people to appropriate a black box, having no idea about what's going on. Telling people, are you saving all the prompts? Are you going to use these prompts against me when there is a new salary negotiation, for instance? So all of these things has to be thought through, right? And this is known as appropriation. Now, without designing for appropriation, you have no adoption. And I think this is a big challenge at the moment companies are facing when trying to convince people to use Gen AI. You get some enthusiasts, but a lot of people, they know how to do their work, they just keep doing their work. And if they don't see the value, they would use the most common appropriation move, which is reject the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really helpful, Per-Ola. Thank you so much. Just going to scroll down a little through the questions. There is one question here that perhaps I can quickly answer in terms of how the course is structured and delivery on a weekly basis. So are there any additional sessions, opportunities, lectures that will take place live or offline? So within the course itself, each week is a different module. We recommend 6 to 8 hours in terms of the time commitment. And I generally say that they are split in half. So 3 to 4 hours each week will be kind of what you would expect from an online course, some self-led videos, quizzes, reading, research that will get you to cover the kind of fundamentals and the knowledge of each week. And then the other half is a little bit more interactive. So we get you to connect with your peers through discussion forums, which works towards forming part of your assessment. And there is a 1 hour live session each week, which will have direct contact with Per-Ola and the other 2 course leads on the course as they share out the weeks as per their expertise and support that they can put in place. So lots of opportunity there. You do have a tutor as well that is assigned to you, somebody you can message and contact at any time during the course if you need any help. Have any questions or need some feedback as you progress through the course itself. Outside of the course,
on the live lecture, so basically we connect, one of the course leads connect. So I'm running the live every module. So there's a module per week. Every module has a live lecture, 1 hour live lecture. So I connect for module 1 and module 6, which means I will give a brief presentation and then we're going to have a group task and we all discuss it and we come together and there's a Q&A and so on. So it's fully interactive with academic leads. So that's 1 hour every week.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Per-Ola. And then after the course, we will also invite you to join an alumni network where you'll kind of hopefully keep in contact with some of those connections you've made in the course, and we'll hopefully be able to still add some value to keeping up to date with AI and technologies as we move forward. But thank you for that question. Just popping down the many questions we've got coming in, which is great to see. A very specific one and maybe fairly quick to answer. Does the course cover generative engine optimization as an alternative to SEO?
So it's not really about very, very specific niche applications of generative AI. It's more about the principles, so how to systematically infuse Gen AI into a business.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Per-Ola. Yeah, I think that's a fairly straightforward answer for that one. A good question here, and fairly open, I suppose. Can I have a role change in my organization after doing this program? It'd be interesting to get your thoughts, Per-Ola, but I think I have my own as well, so happy to jump in.
Anything in life is possible. You have to make it possible. I mean, more information helps, right? So of course we cannot guarantee something like that, right? But with more knowledge and new perspectives, you bring something to the table, right? And if you're bringing something to the table, you can use that as ammunition for a role change. I mean, it's ultimately going to be up to you, but I can't see how the new perspectives, what you will presumably get if you take this course, can hurt in obtaining a role change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would tend to agree as somebody who's completed the course as part of my own professional development. Whilst I've not significantly evolved in my role just yet, I'm certainly in a position to be more confident in taking on projects around generative AI and how we may be able to use it, but also kind of driving digital transformation within my current role and department. So there is certainly a lot of opportunity after the course. from the knowledge gained and the presentation and report that you work on as part of your assessment, to be able to put forward a good case to be able to potentially evolve your role and within your organization, definitely. A question here on practicalities. I'm keen on the course, but during the October offering, I'll be away on annual leave during the scheduled date for a week. Would you see this as a problem? Not necessarily. I think, as with all of our courses, they are challenging. There is lots to keep up with each week. So in an ideal world, you would be there every single week with the course. But we are working with professionals on all of our courses, and we completely understand that there are often disruptions or things that are going on, other priorities and commitments that are needed to be focused on during the course. So there is flexibility to catch up. There is help and support on hand in the form of your tutor to be able to contact and let them know, so they can put in place some help and support as you progress through. As I mentioned before, the only bits to be aware of with that is that if you're away for a complete week, there are some interactive elements that are built into the learning design that you may miss out. Whilst you can go back and revisit them, you'll obviously not be able to engage with them with your peers, as they'll have moved on to the next week, as it were. But certainly the course is designed to offer that type of flexibility. It's completely up to you as a preference if that's something that is suitable to kind of work your way through. But certainly we've had it many times in the past, especially around our current course run, which falls during the school summer holidays. Lots of people have holidays planned and are kind of working around that. So absolutely, yeah. Yeah, a good question, and perhaps to touch on. So do you touch on the available tech tools, pitfalls, and clever enhancements? So I guess a question around the various things that you might uncover during the course. But yeah, Per-Ola, that'd be great if you could get your input.
Yeah, so the module system is written to give you principles that last, right? So it doesn't go into specific tech tools and things like that. The live sessions are live sessions for a reason, so they are fresh, so they get updated all the time. Sometimes even the day before the live session, right, with new material, because it's such a fast changing field. I should also say that these forums we have are very active. So a lot of the exercises, people share a lot of information, and that includes the tutor, about current tools. So things people discuss, for instance, is RAG, retrieval augmented generation. The idea being that you send a prompt to an LLM, but instead of sending the prompt from the user straight to the LLM, you then first feed it through an information retrieval system to a knowledge base that is relevant. For instance, a private customer database in your organization. You get the most relevant results, you augment the prompt with these results, and then feed it to an LLM. And that gives you typically less hallucinations, fewer hallucinations, and it also tends to give you better, more aligned data. And there are some tricks in how to make this work. So when you do the information retrieval in your documentation, you need to get the supposed questions and answers close together. So they're within what's called a context window. Otherwise, the LLM cannot learn to connect them two together. So we do touch on these things from that point of view, and also through the exercises. And there is a lot, and the pitfalls, absolutely. So this is what the risks are about, right? So absolutely, we do touch on these things. And it's a very fast-moving field. So it's quite exciting. So again, the principles in terms of what we need to do and what we can do and what are the pitfalls tend to be relatively robust, but there are new technologies coming out, or they get more and more increasingly refined as the weeks go on, right? It's actually updated on a weekly basis nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd reiterate that whilst the tools themselves are not built within the platform, you're encouraged to go away and explore different ones, whether they're industry specific and working out what's bad, what's good, in terms of going away and trying some prompts and trying to get some of that generative information back, whether it's specific to your role or just exploring things generally. It really encouraged, and then you come back to analyze that within the discussion forums, which helps to form part of that final assessment as well. Perfect. Is the course strictly theoretical, or will it also give practical insights? I think a good one to answer, to make very clear.
Yeah, so it's both theoretical and practical. There's no theory that doesn't have practical implications. So there is some theory, but the theory is there for you to understand how things work, for instance, and why things work and why things are done in a certain way. But it's most certainly designed to have very practical implications. And the proof is in the pudding, because what you're going to do every week is you're going to do an exercise which is marked by your tutor and supported by your tutor. And the outcomes of every weekly exercise that you will accumulate a pretty complete presentation, right, on how to actually deploy Gen AI into an organization. It could be your own, could be a fictional one, could be something you're interested in. So you actually have a very tangible outcome that you develop throughout the course.
Yeah, absolutely. And our learning designers would back that up. As with all of our courses at Cambridge Advanced Online, it is very much theory, application as you progress through the course. Really important for us to have that professional, real world understanding of the knowledge that you're gaining, and very much why we exist within the university sphere in terms of tapping into all this wonderful theory and knowledge that the university is there, but really understanding how to apply that in the real world. So yeah, thank you. Does the use of generative AI require organizations to invest a lot in CapEx expenditure? A good question and very relevant, I think, to
Yeah, so it totally depends, right? So if you're Microsoft, yes, you may read in the news they invest a lot of money, right? Laying people off to basically focus on investing in AI. The reason they do that is because they are running AI services, right? So they need server farms, right? And GPUs and so on, and high-end GPUs. And the power consumption is massive. You even have to modify the grid, right, to actually supply enough power. So if you're going to do that, you need massive CapEx investment. In your organization, you're probably going to use AI as a service. So you're going to buy access to API calls, right? So there will be, so it's not necessarily CapEx expenditure, but there will probably be something you need to bake into your business model in terms of paying for the API calls. But you can choose to use, for instance, DeepSeek and other smaller models. There is about 10 of them that are available now that are competing, that are out there, that you can run completely locally. You don't get the best performance typically because you're running it locally at a smaller scale. And then you will have to invest a CapEx in doing that. But most people do this by striking a deal with one of these big suppliers and buy it in as a service. And they have to basically it's a business decision, right, on how much we're willing to pay for this service.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was something that was explored within the project and as you work through each week. And certainly in terms of myself, when completing the course, it was very interesting to have what were some pretty exotic ideas when I started the course, and that very turned into some more practical solutions that were perhaps possible in the short term, and looking at larger products in the longer term, both in terms of the risk associated and the cost associated to it. So yeah, it was very revealing as you progress through the course. How do you make sure the course covers the most current topics? I think good maybe to reiterate whilst we mentioned slightly, but also a question here, also how hands-on is your course, and makes a reference to Claude Code. So just a comparison there to perhaps clarify and to answer once again.
Yeah, so we're not going to tell you to code and do these sort of things to complete the coursework. We encourage everybody to try out the recent tools and also to, again, participate in our very active forums and in our live sessions and go out and explore different things hands-on. This is why we have the live sessions. So we talk about fundamental principles that tend to be, lasting in the web system. When it comes to the live sessions, we do talk about very up-to-date things, for instance, agentic AI and those ideas. We don't tend to mention specific tools. We sometimes do in the live sessions, but not in the web system. And the reason is because they keep changing. But we do encourage people to do that. And most participants so far, what I've seen, have been going out of their way in investigating how the principles actually apply to the tools that are available, and even using principles that are taught to evaluate how useful these tools actually are they fit for purpose or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's worth just reiterating that the course isn't technical. We're not going to teach you to code or develop a system. We do have another course if you're looking to design AI systems, but certainly in terms of what you'll focus on, it's opportunities, it's risks, it's looking to leverage generative AI within a business context. So lots of strategy, lots of business focus and organizational application as you work through the course. But yeah, I hope that helps to just clarify that area. A question here about ethical issues. So we've talked about risk. To what extent are ethical issues important in generative AI? Very much covered within the course again, so very relevant. Perhaps we can touch on that just quickly.
Yeah, particular module 3 talks a lot about this, and Henry Eider is an expert in this area. It is absolutely incredibly important. It's very tightly interlinked with risk, actually, but also appropriation and adoption. So it's very important to get these systems right and using systematic methods to understand what these risks might be and mitigate them. And if you try to make shortcuts, it will typically give you, unpleasant results later. So it is something that is to the heart of this. It's again fundamental when it comes to this cost-benefit trade-off.
Yeah, absolutely. And as mentioned before, very much working with AI is very similar to working with people. So ethics from a business reputation point of view is super important and needs to be really considered in depth as you consider applications of generative AI as well. Just going to scroll down a little bit. There was a good question here about preparation prior to the course. So what AI tools, products should we familiarize ourselves with before or during the training, but perhaps we can kind of discuss that before as well.
We don't assume you have familiarized yourself before, but I would greatly encourage you to simply try out the free tools and to push them and see when they break, right? So ask different questions and just get a sense for what these tools can and what they cannot do.
Yeah, absolutely. And come with some ideas. I think it's nice whether they're relevant just generally to your industry that you work in, or relevant just on a small level to directly to your role. I think it's nice to be able to come and either come with an idea that is just completely out there and completely not relevant, and you'll discover that in the course, or you'll be able to hone that idea a little bit more as you progress through each week. So a good opportunity, but certainly not necessary in doing any kind of learning or anything to take the course. We're there to kind of work your way through and give you everything you need as you progress through. I think we still have time just for perhaps one last question or a couple more. Let's see how we can get through. An interesting one. Let's try this, perhaps specific. So we work in criminal justice and deal with thousands of pages of Ministry of Justice sensitive information. Will the course help us to integrate AI into our operations without compromising data protection? Excuse me.
So that is a huge problem. So what the course will tell you is things to think about and how to, what are some of the issues and how to think about that in a systematic way. Obviously, you will then have to solve the problem, right? So the course won't tell you how to solve this specific problem, but it will most certainly help you to structure your thinking about what could go wrong, what are the capabilities, what are the opportunities, what is the essence, how do you describe this system to make sense of it, what are the requirements, and so on, to be able to, approach a solution.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that. Let's try and squeeze one more in, and apologies to anybody else if we don't have time to get around to your question. But there's a couple of questions here around sort of the level of education required to complete the course and whether anybody hasn't been able to complete it in the past. So is there any advice around the level of education that you'd recommend to be able to keep up with the course? And have you had any instances where participants are unable to complete it?
Right. So it's actually designed so anybody who has some sort of quantitative background can benefit from the course. So, if you have like a background in, let's say, linguistics, economics, business, psychology, and so on, you will be able to take the material to heart. We have gone out of our way to avoid unnecessary equations and so on. So we will talk a little bit about how things actually work to demystify it a bit, but the aim is to demystify it, not teach you, principles of machine learning, right? Which would be a course of its own. So I think some sort of willingness to think quantitatively is all that is needed from that sense. I'm not sure about participants being unable to complete it. Have you seen that? I'm not 100%
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, we get asked that a lot on an individual basis, and I think generally the answer is that we have a very good success rate in people passing. Generally, that's over 90% across all our courses. I'm afraid I would have to look at this one specifically to see if that's different at all, but it would be unusual if it is. Many of the times, the issues that we see that people don't complete the course is because something does come up during the course, professionally or personally, that means that they're unable to complete it. And there are some fallbacks in there to help you to manage that and manage your time, whether looking to defer to a future date of the course is an option, or looking at the flexibility around extensions and giving a bit more time to either catch up or complete the work. They are predominantly the reasons why people don't pass the course, or some simply are there just to engage in the content and not actually work towards the certificate, although also highly unusual and fairly irregular. What I would also say is that the assessments are very much there to extend the learning and not there to catch anybody out. So there are lots of opportunities to, again, retake the quizzes and resubmit work as you progress through, to get some feedback and stay up to date. So we are there to support you in succeeding in this course, and certainly not working against you. Whilst academically rigorous and what you'd expect from the university, this course is there to benefit you and certainly not to catch you out. I think that is probably the time that we have for all questions. There are a lot of questions that are also around suitability, around specific industries, and I think just to sort of hopefully answer that and reaffirm that the course is designed to be industry agnostic. It's there to be able to give everybody an opportunity to understand how generative AI can be relevant to themselves, from as small as looking at how you could perhaps sum up meeting notes, to larger projects of kind of replacing big functions within an organization or a business. So whether you are a teacher or looking at large projects, as a question is here, the course really does have a lot of benefits and will allow you to personalize the learning as you progress through that project that you work on. So we really hope that this has been helpful today, and we thank you for joining today's session. Apologies again if we haven't had time to answer your question, but we will endeavour to get back to you on any questions or topics that we haven't been able to address. As a reminder, there will be a short survey when you exit the webinar, which will give you the opportunity to ask that question if you haven't already. And please do take a couple of moments to provide us with some feedback, and look out for that follow-up email later this week, in which we'll share the recording of the webinar and some useful links that have been mentioned today as well. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, Per Ola, and see you again soon, hopefully. Take care.